Hey there, this is Julie from Silver Birch Studio, and today I thought I would show you how to make a watercolor Procreate stamp brush. I think this should be a fun project. If you've ever wanted to make a stamp brush, this is a great way to learn, and we're going to do something extra special and make it watercolor. So grab your iPad and your Apple Pencil and let's go. To start off with, I do have a paper texture for you today that will give us the watercolor effect. That's in the Birch Grove. There are links down below in the description so that you can sign up. There's a bunch of other free brushes, free color palettes, free paper textures, all kinds of good stuff. So it's well worth signing up for that. But the one that we're going to be using today is a square watercolor paper, because when we make a brush, the image that we make a stamp brush out of needs to be square. So when you open up the document, import it into Procreate and open it up, you'll see there's a paper texture at the top that's locked. You can just leave it alone unless you really want to mess with it. Then there's a paint here layer. We're actually not going to use a ton of layers in this one, but I am going to duplicate it once so that I have 2 layers. Now the brush that I'm going to be using today is part of my Watercolor Magic brushes. Open those up, and the one that I've selected, and any of these will work really, but the Duo Color Bleeding Outline Blooms brush is the one I'm going to use. If you have a favorite watercolor brush, go ahead and choose that. Now when you make a brush in Procreate, the image that you make the stamp brush out of, or any brush out of, needs to be in not black and white per se, but grayscale. However, when you import that image into Procreate, into the brush engine, it will convert it to grayscale for you. So I'm actually going to use color today to make this watercolor leaf that I'm going to make a stamp out of. And I happen to be using 2 colors from my Duo Color combos that come with the Watercolor Magic brushes. So I've got sort of a green and a tealy color that are selected here. You'll see them in the 2 boxes here, and I have the darker color selected as my primary brush color. I'm using this brush today at 8%, which should give us a good effect, and this one's pretty simple. So, and you can make anything you like. This is just a suggestion. So we'll need a stem. I like something with a curve to it. I'm actually going to put the leaves on a separate layer just because that way I can move them around more easily. So I'm going to go up to that second layer that I created. I'm going to use the pressure sensitivity of the brush to create the leaves. So I'll start out heavy and then I'll go light at the end pressure-wise. So heavy makes it wider, and it also brings in that secondary color that we had picked. And then as I ease off on the pressure, I get that nice taper, and I get the darker color coming in. So first leaf down. And I like these to be kind of organic and messy and head in different directions. It's really up to you how you want to do them. I'm going to turn this around. I find it easier to operate that way, and that way you can see what I'm doing. And again, heavier pressure, then lighter pressure. And again, and we're just going to repeat this all the way down until we've completed our leaf. So heavy pressure or light pressure. I like to kind of vary the direction that the leaves are pointing just to make it more organic. They can even cross over if you want them to. Maybe one more set of leaves down here. Okay, because of the position of the other leaves being a little bit further away from the stem, I want to take that first one and move it up. So I'm going to grab the selection tool, make sure I'm set to freehand. I just need to draw a circle around it. Coming back to the start, doesn't matter that I've grabbed the stem because it's on its own layer. I just have to make sure I don't grab any of the other leaves. So we're good to go. I can grab the move tool. I'm going to turn snapping off because that will interfere with the the placement that I want to do, and I want to make sure uniform's on. That way I won't inadvertently change the length or width of it. So then I just want to nudge this out a little bit. That should do it. Now it looks more in line with the other leaves and the distance from the stem. Okay, so now we're good. Now we're good with the position of everything. I'm going to go ahead and merge these all together. Okay, now that I've got everything merged on one layer, I'm going to go ahead and grab the Move tool, and I'm going to position this in the center. So when those crosshairs come up, I know that it's in the center. And the reason I want to do that is because that will make it sit in the right place when we make our brush. So now we've got this. I want to do one more thing. I want the brush to have the texture of the paper, but I don't want this to pick up at all on the brush. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the paper texture. I'm going to unlock it temporarily, open it up. Now there's two layers in this paper texture, and they're both important, but one of them does the background and one of them does what you've drawn on. So if I go ahead and turn off this DC, let me zoom in so that you can see this a little bit more clearly. Let me put that back on. So now you can see the texture of the paper behind everything. If I turn that layer off, now it's only on where we've drawn, which is what we want for when we make the brush. So go ahead and close that back up again. You can turn it back on later and use this paper for other things, but that gives us what we need. Okay, now that we've got our paper texture only on what we've painted, I think I want a little bit more contrast when I go to make the brush. So to do that, it's easy. I'm going to duplicate it. And I actually want some more variation to show up through this, even though I've made it darker. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit this N, brings up the blend modes, and I'm going to switch this to linear burn. Multiply could also work, but I think linear burn is going to give us the biggest contrast between the lighter and darker areas. That way we'll get more texture in our final brush when we go to stamp it. So let me just show you, let me zoom in here a little bit and turn that on and off. And that will really show you the variation. Now if it's too much, you can always lower the opacity a little bit. Let's put it at about 70. I think that works well. Zoom back out. I think that should make a nice brush for us. Okay, so now I'm going to copy the canvas, 3-finger swipe down. I'm going to hit Copy All, and this is what we're going to use to make our brush. So we'll go to the Brushes panel, hit the plus sign to make a brand new brush. First thing I'm going to do before I start messing with anything else, I'm going to go to the shape, hit Edit, hit Import, and Paste. Now that's pasted our leaf in, so it's all ready to go, except the way Procreate works is what's white in a brush lays down pigment or pixels, and what's black doesn't. So I actually want the reverse of what I'm seeing here. Just hit it with 2 fingers and it'll reverse the entire thing. So now the brush is going to imprint what we see in the lighter color and the black won't show up at all. So go ahead and hit done on that. Now, obviously this isn't what we're going for. We're going for a stamp brush. So I'm going to come up to stroke path. The default is 17. I'm going to move it all the way up to maximum. Pretty easy there. On rendering, there's a number of these that will work. I usually use either intense glaze or intense blending, either one, but any of these will work. So we'll go ahead and just leave it on intense glaze. We'll come down to the Apple Pencil. I'm going to turn the opacity off to none because I don't want there to be a variation every time I stamp this down. If you do want a variation, you could go ahead and leave that on. But in this case, I want it to just be the same each time. Under Properties, under Maximum Size, I'm going to go ahead and turn this up. That's good. That should do the trick. And then under About This Brush, because you're proud of your new brush, you should go ahead and name it. And you can even import a photo if you'd like, or your logo or something like that. We'll skip that in this case. So now I'm going to go ahead and create a new reset point. And that means that this brush is now set in place. You can always adjust it and then create a new reset point, but we're good to go now. So let's hit done. Now it shows up at the top of whatever pack you were in when you hit the plus sign. So it's showing up at the top of my watercolor brushes. I'm going to go ahead and turn off our 2 layers. I'm going to add another layer. And now let's pick a different color. Let's pick, what about this dark green here? Let's see where we are. Let's go up to about, see how it looks at 70%. Ooh, pretty big. Let's go back down. And there's your brush. Let's try a different color. 2 fingers to undo. Try a lighter color. There you go. 2 fingers to undo. Try a different shade. And once you've stamped it, you can of course adjust your brush size and you'll get a different size of stamp. But once you've stamped it, you can actually adjust, as long as you keep it on its own layer. You can resize this. You could even, if you wanted to, switch to freeform and make it slightly more narrow, slightly longer. Lots of different ways you can play with this to get a lot of different looks from the same thing. Of course, you can vary the angle and the shape, and you can do all kinds of things. You can even play with the warp tool and adjust the look of the brush that way. So have fun with this, and thanks for playing with me today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, get that link to the Birch Grove to sign up for all the free stuff, and hope you enjoyed this. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.